In the last video I promised to go into more detail about this painting technique called hidden resist. And this is habotai silk 12 mummies, and this time I pulled it pretty tight, as I like to do. The drawing is done in pencil. Today I'm not going to focus on the palette and how the dyes are mixed, because there are a lot of videos on my channel about it. And you often ask what brand of powder dyes I use. Honestly, these dyes were bought back in the last century from a local textile mill. And it didn't matter what the brand was. What mattered was the pure bright color. As I understand, these dyes are universal. They are not only for silk and wool, but also for cotton. I like that they don't lose their qualities when they dry. You can dilute them with water again and keep working with them. And that's why I don't even always wash my palette. Like I said in the last video, I had an idea to paint a pretty big and pretty realistic peony. And the initial idea was quite ambitious, not to use the resist. And it was funny. Maybe if you set that goal and seriously start practicing, you can achieve a good result over time, because nothing is impossible, I guess. But I was getting pretty sketchy, and no matter how much I controlled the wetness of my brush, my dye still bled over the edges of the drawing. So the sequence of my actions today is as follows. Step 1. I try very carefully to repeat my reference in the free painting technique. It's important for me to find the right color, the right shade, the right tonality and value. And it's very important not to over-darken the color, especially in the light areas. And this is a very pleasant and very interesting process, but sure, it requires a lot of concentration and attention. As always, I use a round synthetic brush with a thin tip. It's number 10, I think. When, in general, the flower is outlined, I can start to concretize and refine it. As always, I build up the darkness of the color very gradually and very carefully. Even though this peony is white, it has a ton of shades of yellow, blue and pink, and they are very subtle. And of course, I don't always hit the color and tone perfectly, but I try to do my best. And it's also very important not to get carried away by small details and not to lose the general tonality. So from time to time I need to put the frame aside and look at the painting from afar. As always, I have paper towels on hand to dry the brush, and when the color is too dark, I soak it with water and remove it with a paper towel. But you probably already know this trick. Now I paint the background. And actually the background in freehand painting is more complicated, because if I manage to hold the drawing, the color saturation suffers. But at this stage the priority is to preserve the drawing. That is, not to let the dye bleed far over the edges of the pencil drawing. But very gradually and slowly I move forward. Closer to the peony, I try to take a dry brush. And now it's time for the second step, which is the hidden resist. And for that I take the transparent resist and trace around the whole pencil drawing. And these are the kind of gaps you shouldn't leave, but it's harder to keep track of on multicolored silk. Since the resist is transparent, it will take the color of the painting under it, and thus it will be virtually invisible. And that's why it's very important to apply the color and tone as accurately as possible in the first step. I need all of this to achieve maximum realism, and a regular colored resist wouldn't work well here. It leaves a very different impression. As you can see, the dye bled over the edges of the drawing, but this line will be washed away when painting again. Now I have to wait for the resist to dry and stop sticking to my finger. Here the resist is still wet, and this is how it looks at a certain angle when it dries. But now you can hardly distinguish it at all. And a couple of words about my resist. I use a resist that I prepare myself. The recipe is in this video. It's elastic, doesn't wrinkle silk, it doesn't need to be washed off afterwards, and it remains as soft and elastic after your dyes are steam set. So step number 3 is the final detailing. Now I'm not afraid of losing the pattern, it's all soaked with the resist. So I can paint more boldly and wet. As long as the dye is wet, you can see the resist line, but then it won't be visible, as long as I don't intensify the tone in that area. But if I dye with a darker color than I did before applying the resist, it will certainly be noticed. I'll show you later. You see, here's the color was applied with a semi-dry brush, and these micro gaps really reduce the saturation of the color. But sometimes it's enough just to wet them with water, and the color regains its saturation. And that's why I need this hidden resist. Your reactions are very important. Thank you all for the likes and comments, and maybe if you would like to support me, the link will be in the pinned comment. And where I enhanced the hue, the resist line is still visible, so it's always better to guess the exact tonality at the first stage of painting, so the resist will remain really hidden. Such a delicate peony at the end, and I'm happy with the result. I wish you good luck, and I'll see you.